Hey everyone, it's Craig from All Tech Together, coming at you with another product review. And today, we're going to be taking a look at this here, and that's the Sound Blaster AE5 from Creative. Now this is something that I thought, to be honest, had went the way of the dodo bird. PCIe sound cards had their places, but over the years have been replaced with either an onboard solution, such as motherboard, or probably the more common external sound solutions like amps and DACs. So before we see how this sound card stacks up, I want to be upfront and say that this sound card was provided to me from Creative for review. However, I will state that just because a company sends me something does not mean that I'm going to go easy on the product. And the views in this video are mine and mine alone. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So, like I said in the intro, a dedicated sound card is kind of a strange thing as far as I'm concerned. Dedicated amps and DACs kind of killed the market for these things. But here we are with the AE5 sound card. So let's take a cruise around the box and see what Creative has to say about this product. Right in the front, Creative gives a bunch of information, like 122 decibel rating with high-res audio and a discrete headphone amp. X amp with discrete 5.1 and virtual 7.1 surround. Something called Scout Radar that we'll talk about more later. And then the Blaster X acoustic engine to control it all. Lastly, there's a crystal voice and powered by Sound Core. Wow, that is a bunch of logos in the front, but ultimately, does any of this even matter to me or to you? I will say that some of this info is nice to see, such as the high-res audio. But I find the rest to be just marketing. Now don't get me wrong, all these badges do mean something, but I think that it's just a bit over the top to plaster the front of a box just in the hopes that consumers are attracted to it. The last thing of note on the front of the box is the Aura Reactive badge, which is just a really fancy way of saying that this puppy here has RGB on it. Some of you watching may not know what a PCIe sound card is, but put simply, it's a card that plugs into your free PCIe slot on your motherboard, such as your graphics card. I will say that I did connect the card to my motherboard in every slot that I could, and the performance was the same. So don't feel like it has to be in the X16 slots. As for installation goes, it's simply plug and play into a free slot. Now, when I installed the card, things went well, but I soon started to have problems. The software would actually make my entire computer just crash to a blue error screen. This was fixed, however, when I installed the newest drivers, so I can't bash them too hard, but as I already run Blaster X acoustic software, it would have been nice for it to automatically update. Since we are on the topic of software, let's dive into the acoustic engine and see what we can do, shall we?
This here is a look at the Sound Blaster Connect software, and this is what the AE5 uses to control all of its various settings and whatnot. So I have a little camera set here in the corner, just so you guys can see sort of how the lighting reacts with the sound card when you have the RGB enabled. So let's start off with the RGB. So on this screen here, we can see here with the logo lighting, as well we have the external lighting. And as I said before, this does have RGB, and it does come with one Rgb strip. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Molex connector for the power to get the RGB. I'm also not a huge fan of where the RGB strip connects into the front, because it kind of makes your system look a little bit odd. But as you can see here, I have the lighting already on, and you can see on the actual sound card itself, rather, sort of when I go to change this, so let's say if I want to go to red, I go okay, and it clicks to red. Now there is the AE5 logo on the front and then the Sound Blaster logo on the top, but I'm not sure if you can notice this, but when I go to white and I click it, the AE5 on the front of the sound card is white, which is great. But on the top, the Sound Blaster is actually, Sound Blaster X rather, is more yellow on the top. And I'm not a huge fan of that. It seems like the color doesn't quite match with certain colors. So if I go to here, so this is sort of like a maroony brown. On the front it looks pink, and on the top it looks maroony brown. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the color itself. Now, it's not a massive deal, but if you are somebody that really wants it to match, this could be a little bit of a problem for you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this lighting off here. Actually, you know what, before I do that, you'll notice here on the left hand side there's the Rainbow Rave, this Solo Orange, Wave Ice Blue, Pulse Red, and if I click on those, it just does that. And you can see here the Rgb strip also lit up on that one. It sort of does them both. So I'll turn that off and we'll look at the Rgb strip now. And the Rgb strip is actually pretty nice. There's no problems here with this, and the color seems to be fairly accurate. If I go all the way to white, which is 255, 255, 255, and I click that, it gives a nice white, bright white. And the camera doesn't really pick it up as well as it should, but it is a nice, you know, good, bright, solid white. It should be noted too that these LED strips here, they are able to be hooked up with the 3M tape on the back, as well as they do have integrated magnets. So if you don't want to hook up or get it all gummed up with the stuff, you can simply just use the integrated magnets, which is nice. So like I said before, I'm not a big fan of the RGB implementation in this card. I think it looks a little bit weird just in how it's connected. But other than that, and I've said it in past videos, anything that allows me to better customize my setup is really kind of what I'm looking for. So we'll turn off this RGB here. So let's look here at the dashboard. So here's the dashboard. You can see on the left hand side there is an absolute ton of the Blaster Experience auto profiles for sound signatures. And honestly, my favorite is actually this Area of Valor one. It just adds quite a bit of bass to the music, and it's really, really nice that way. But you can add a bunch if you click on here. You can enter the name. You can make custom ones all you want, and we'll go over that in a second here. You also have access to the lighting here. You can set your equalizer. This one's set to flat right now, and I can turn it off or on. The Blaster acoustic engine here, I can turn the surround sound, the crystallizer. The bass, I can add that a little bit more. The smart volume, so that's just going to stop any sort of sudden jumps in the middle of the night. If, you know, there's a commercial playing or something like that, it's not going to get crazy loud. And then Dialogue Plus just helps to bring forth the dialogue. Over here we have the Scout 2.0. So the Scout mode basically just turns up the treble so that you can hear footsteps a little bit easier. And I find it's sort of not that good. It doesn't really add much to the gaming experience whatsoever. And then there's the Scout Radar. And the Scout Radar I alluded to earlier. And this is an app that you can download to your phone. And it's supposed to help pinpoint where the enemies are on the game. And I think this is absolutely ridiculous, just due to the fact that if I'm playing a game, I'm looking at the monitor, not at my device, my tablet, or my cell phone. And so it's really just wasted, I think, in that regard, and it doesn't work very well. I tried it, and I just thought to myself, no, this is a not needed sort of thing, so I would just leave it off forever. We got some voice clarity, so it can noise reduction in case you have a noisy fans or things like that. Echo cancellation if you're in a recording room that has just walls, no dampening, and then smart volume. Just sort of normalizes the voice. And then over here we have the voice morph. And if you really want to sound, and if I click on this, oh, I have to go over here actually. Click on this, voice morph. You can make yourself sound like a male or a female or a kid or elderly and any of these different little things. This honestly is more just a gimmick than anything you should use. And I'm sure we've all been on the games that we play here, like Overwatch and whatnot, and had somebody using one of these. I think they're annoying, but they're here, so I can't be too upset about it. So after we're done with the dashboard here, we can come down here, and here we can look at our equalizer. And like I said, I have flat here. I can make it hip hop, and you can see how the curve changes. I can click on here, Area of Valor, and again, you see how it changes. It ups that bass, and it ups the treble, and I really like this. Now, if you don't want to use this, you can simply just make your own. So, and I can just literally draw a line with my mouse, and it's going to best sort of pick what I want and sort of auto-fill it in between certain areas. So if you're somebody that really likes to play with their audio curves, you can go ahead and do that. And it's you know, it's fun. It's enjoyable. It gives you a little bit more customization as you're playing a game or as you're listening to your music or watching your movies. And I'd rather have more customization than less customization. Once we get there, here we go back down to voice. In the clarity, we have noise reduction, acoustic echo cancellation, and then smart volume here as well. And then back to the lighting. Okay, so ultimately, it's actually a pretty decent software suite here. I find that this doesn't have the same lag that the keyboard that I reviewed earlier, the Sound Blaster keyboard that I did have, or that I reviewed has, which is nice because I don't like that lag in the software. But I do find that the software there's a lot of stuff on here that's not needed, and that's my biggest problem here with the software. So like I said before, guys, if you have any questions about software or anything like that, let me know in the comments down below and I'll get back to you.
Okay, now, with all the software out of the way, let's talk about what's most important. And that's the sound and the price. The AE5 comes in at $149.99 US on Creative's website and Amazon.com, and $189.99 on Amazon.ca. So this is a bit of a pricey piece of tech. Remember, this is just a sound card, so a pair of headphones might also need to be purchased. I connected mine to my HyperX Cloud Alphas into the AE5, ready to do my testing. And this is when something really funny happened. I was blown away with what I heard. I took my headphones off and connected my headset to the onboard sound of my motherboard. And I can say that there's a massive difference in the audio. Now, my curiosity was piqued. I connected my SteelSeries Pro with DAC up and went for a listen just to compare the two. After switching between the two setups for a few hours, I can say that Creative has done some really good work here. Now, this is not to say that everything is perfect. As I mentioned earlier, the software needs some work. But honestly, my biggest problem is that if you want to have the RGB function, you need to connect the card to power supply. And I totally see why. But Creative, what's up with the Molex connector? I feel like with today's advances, we should have SATA power for everything. I'm also not super happy with the connection point for the RGB light strip. I feel like it makes the card look funny having a light strip just jutting out from the front of the card like that. The last thing that I have to bring up is one that may or may not affect everyone. But when I first tried the card, I used my front headset connections, and the sound sucked, to put it bluntly. But with all other tests I did, I can say it was due to my poorly isolated front I/O connections. So just be aware, you may need to run an extension of the rear connection on the card itself at the back of your tower. In closing, the AE5 is a really great product. But once you add up the cost of the card and the headphones, I can see why people could argue otherwise. I see this being best suited for those of us who want a clean desk setup without a bunch of other electronic boxes sitting up and cluttering up your desk space. But coming from a strictly sound quality angle, this thing holds its own. Well, that's it for this review. Remember, if you like what I do here, hit that like and subscribe button down below. Also, if you have any questions about these things, don't hesitate to ask in the comments down below. I love to hear from you out there, and I love to help you guys. Again, my name is Craig from All Tech Together, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.